Am I always looking for comic books, or are comic books always looking for me? Hey there, I have an unboxing video for you today, and in this video I'm going to open up an order that I placed a couple weeks ago from Mile High Comics. Now, it was an interesting time when I placed this order because we were at the tail end of Moon Knight. There was some other speculation related to upcoming shows, and then just some other general chatter about comic books and a little bit of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness kind of mixed in. And it was one of those times where I had a little bit of FOMO going on, or maybe I was just trying to find the particular books that were being talked about or heating up in the market. And what I found is, even though I became aware of the books that were picking up in value, or at least increasing in level of attention, I wasn't actively seeking out any of these books. I didn't feel like any of the books that I had on this short list at that particular time, it might have even been just that day. What I end up doing is, there's part of me that feels like I need to do something about this comic, especially if I don't have it. If I have a copy, maybe I go back and take it out of the bin, maybe see, is this something I could press and clean? Is it something that I would want to consider put aside for grading? I'm not quite sure, but I do feel like as long as I go through the motions about a book. So on one hand, if I own the book, and let's say there's some sort of MCU casting news or something, or just maybe there's just some relevance or attention given to a particular comic book, I like to go and find that book, and there's something about like the tactile response of holding the comic book and looking at it, and it kind of makes me feel good, like, okay, I've got this book. And that's relatively easy to do, and it kind of gets a little bit of the excitement out of my system. But the other scenario is when I don't own the book. And there are times where I can do certain things, like maybe add the book to my cart, find it on eBay and add it to a watch list, even maybe ask somebody on social media, send them a direct message if they have it on their page, and say, are you willing to sell it? There's something about at least attempting to attach yourself to the book that sometimes is, I don't want to say is fulfilling, but it does scratch a little bit of a FOMO itch, so to speak. What I end up doing is, with my spreadsheet tracking analysis, what I'll end up doing is, as these books kind of get on my radar for one reason or another, I will then add them to my spreadsheet tracker, and I'll start to study the values. Back when I was really young and I was into sports cards, before Wizard magazine, I would study the Beckett Baseball Card Monthly, Beckett Football Card Monthly. Those were the two sports I primarily collected. I would study the insides of those price guides so that I could be quizzed, probably pass those quizzes more than I could pass quizzes in school. If you quiz me about any price, I could probably tell you what a 1989 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card was worth during a particular month and year. I was just into it. And then Wizard magazine came along, and my head just exploded, because I was like, everything that I would study and everything I loved as a kid in terms of sports cards, and I was into comics before Wizard, but once Wizard came out, then I was like, oh my gosh, there's articles from creators that I love and a price guide. Wizard, every month it was, I loved consuming that magazine. So now, kind of fast forward to today, when we don't have something like Wizard, and we have a lot of different online entities describing comic books, from either looking at speculation, keys, values, graded values. They're kind of all over the place. And there's not one singular resource that has all of that information in one spot. Except that's what my spreadsheet has. So I've developed this spreadsheet kind of taking the bits and pieces of all of this data floating around on the internet and elsewhere. And I essentially create a record of it in my spreadsheet. And there's part of me that feels like the process of hearing about a book, and again, I hear about it from a number of different, from YouTube, from Instagram, uh, other top 10 lists, you name it, just anywhere you would normally get information about comic books or consume it. And maybe it's just a cover you love, right? And someone has shown the cover to you, and you're at an LCS and you see something on the wall. However a book gets on your radar is the same for me. So however I look around and I see a book and like, okay, that's the one that I think I want to sort of track or add to a wish list, or do something about. That process for me of just entering the book into my spreadsheet, it gives me a little bit of a sense of ownership, where I may not be owning the comic book, but I'm owning the information, I'm owning the data, and I start to study it, digest it, and think about it, obsess about it. And then I start to look at values and tracking values, and I can kind of see, okay, if Cover Price is reporting that this book is trending upwards, maybe by 2 or 3%, I remember that book, I add it to my tracking system. Okay, well, let me look it up on GPA, and I'm kind of bouncing around doing all of this. And then the best thing ends up happening. And that is when maybe these books that I'm not actively pursuing shows up on one of the online retailers that I regularly buy from. And then that's all of that studying and the awareness built around the book. When I see it become available, I know that I can cross-reference the availability of the book with my spreadsheet, and I know whether or not it's a good purchase, or if it's just because it's available and I'm aware it's a decent enough opportunity to buy the book. So that was a really long explanation to kind of tell you why I purchased the books in this order. And it was really triggered by, either things that I saw in a Disney Plus show or chatter around the internet and so forth. And I didn't run out and buy the books right in that moment. And I'll kind of explain this as I go through the unboxing. It was really more around the books becoming available, and the availability matched with the opportunity, matched up with the analysis. Looking at all of that, it sort of came together. And then I decided, okay, now I will purchase some of those books that I was tracking. So it's a little bit of a different approach. It's not really around like comic book hunting. It's just building that awareness around buying opportunities. And I continue to just educate myself on the hobby. There's plenty of comic books. There's plenty of comic books that I don't know much about. So it's really just that ongoing education that I love, and I just continue to study it on a daily basis, and again use my tracking system. And you don't need a spreadsheet to provide that level of awareness. You can write it down on a Post-it note and just say, okay, this is a book that I want to keep track of. I have pieces of paper that I used to keep on my desk, where I would just jot down, like I would hear somebody I respect in the community talk about a particular book. I'd write it down, and then what I ended up doing is I would maybe a week later lay out the pieces of paper and just kind of eyeball, and then I would start searching places like Mile High Comics to see if those books were available and what the price was. And that's when I quickly realized I need to move away from these scraps of paper and digitize the process. So let me get to the unboxing. I'll show you the books I got and talk a little bit about the timing of kind of when I became aware of the book versus when I bought it. And then afterward, I'll show you what I paid for the books, and then we can compare the values against the cost. And then we can see also if they have that graded value potential as well. So let's get to the unboxing. All right, here is that order that I placed with Mile High Comics from mid-May 2022. Always pick FedEx on the way out, never USPS. It does not cost you any more money to do FedEx or to use FedEx. Once you reach a certain threshold, I believe it's $75. Shipping is free. So once it's free and you can pick FedEx, I love picking FedEx. So I'm going to go ahead and open the envelope and unbox these comics. Okay, say what you will about the Mile High Comics website, but they are so consistent with their packaging and their delivery. I love ordering from them because they're always delivering the books without any in transit damage. Knock on wood, I have never received a package that has been damaged from Mile High Comics. So again, you start to build up maybe your trust and your faith in some of the places you order from, and I am willing to spend more money with certain places because if I can maybe add a few dollars to my order to reduce the risk, I will do that every time. So let me get to the comics. There are 6 books in this order, and let's take a look and see what we got. So right off the bat, this is exactly what I was talking about. This is Thor 326. Now, I really enjoyed Moon Knight on Disney Plus. It was certainly different, and if you're looking for just costumed superheroes beating each other up, maybe this was not the show for you. But for me, I really loved the character study that was Moon Knight. The interesting thing here is this is the just notice there's a little bit of a ink blotching or blotting right there. But this is the first appearance of the Scarlet Scarab. And that is the persona, I guess, that was introduced at the end of the show, or in the last episode, I guess. And while it was gender swapped, it's still the same concept. It's still Scarlet Scarab. And so at the time that this episode dropped, this particular book, Thor 326, it got a lot of attention. People were picking it up like that same day, which typically happens. Quinlan Voss is the latest. Like his first name was mentioned, and throughout the same day, all of the Quinlan Voss books took off, and that's just kind of what people are doing. They need some sort of audible or visual proof of a character in live action, and then the back issues of the comics pick up. So I'm going to kind of grade this and talk about it, but like most Mile High comics, especially like this is from 1982, it would definitely benefit from a press. So we have a little bit of curling happening, a little bit of creasing right there that you can see. But for the most part, the spine is in pretty good shape. I don't really see any major spine ticks. Just general, I'd just say wear and tear, but it is miswrapped. The miswrapping, I am not becoming a fan of miswrapping. The only thing I will say is it does tend to hide any color breaks there, so you kind of luck out a little bit. There's just some general spine ticks that would come out with a tack iron or just some humidity in a press. But corners look really great. The top looks very, very sharp. And these are this is the condition that I expect the books to come in. As far as the back goes, there is a little bit of dirt, just enough, I think, to probably knock it down a grade. It's either dirt or color rub, but discoloration nonetheless. And then this corner is interesting. It does have a little bit, it's not a tear, it's actually just extra paper. It's just sort of hanging off. So I'm going to leave that. I never touch it because it's just, you're going to end up tearing the book, introducing an actual tear. But this is a fun cover. We also have the sarcophagus here with Thor in it. And of course, we never really knew who was in the sarcophagus. In Moon Knight, we think it was Jake, but we're not sure. We're never really told. It's just assumed. Anyway, great book. Really, really nice. Looks to be white pages or off-white to white at best. But this was one of those that when I watched the show and I saw some, and I went to eBay just looking at like, is the book there? Is it selling? And I saw the prices it was going for. I didn't have this book, and I just thought to myself, I don't want to say let me get a piece of the book because that sounds weird. Like, do I want to find an LCS and just find the book and hold it, or I'm not to get all creepy or anything. What I ended up doing to sort of feel like I had kind of a piece of the action is I just started tracking it. I started to educate myself. I wanted to learn more, like, how did the Scarlet Scarab in this issue differ from the one we saw in Moon Knight? Let me add it to the tracking system. And then through a wish list alert, Mile High happened to discover this book. As sometimes they do. It's kind of strange. Sometimes the books that they add to their inventory is usually after they hear something, or whatever system that they're using. They see, oh, this particular book was probably a $5 comic, and then the show dropped, and then it jumped in value. But they didn't have this book that, I couldn't find it on the day the show episode dropped. It was later. And the weirdest thing for me was it was posted after the discount at a price that was right around fair market value, or just under. And again, I'll compare the current values of this book because I do believe it's dropped a little bit since I bought it. But the point is, I wasn't chasing this book. I wasn't FOMOing over it. I just started to learn about it. I just started to track it. I just started to just become more aware, like as if I were to walk, into an LCS or a comic book show, and if I saw this in a bin and I saw it at a certain price, then I would know that it would be something worth picking up. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. Here's another one, Secret Wars. This is Secret Wars #1 from 2015 with that fantastic near mint sticker right there. So that means it's near mint, right? And this is another one where once we saw Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, we heard Reed Richards talk about an incursion and kind of defined it for Doctor Strange when he met the Illuminati. I think I mentioned this before, but I had been all in on the Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. I didn't have Secret Wars from 2015. The only issue I had was, I think, #2. But I didn't have #1. I didn't have any of the other issues. So I just started tracking it. And I found a few copies actually on Midtown for cover price. And then they sold out. It's been like in and out of stock, which is weird. But and I think it's in stock right now. But it was out of stock a couple days ago when I placed an order there. I don't know. It's the inventory system there, and quantities and prices. I can't begin to explain it. But Mile High had it. I thought that it was for a good price. I didn't think it was the best price, but with me at the time not being able to acquire it from Midtown, or maybe I couldn't remember if I acquired it, I just wanted to pick up a copy from Mile High. Now, a lot of times with Mile High Comics too, if you're buying a book that was more recently released, a modern book, a lot of times you can get lucky and get 9/8 from them. I see this one has a little bit of corner wear down here that I'll have to deal with right there, a little chip. So it's possible that this could be simply a 9/4. But a lot of times you can sneak out a 9/6 or a 9/8 with some of their more recent releases, where this book from 1982, Thor 326, that one definitely needs some additional pressing there to kind of bring it up to my expectations in terms of condition and quality. All right, Fantastic Four 286. Now, this one doesn't fall into any category. It's not a book that is spec'd on. It's not a book that there's no rumor or anything like that. It does have that great NM sticker, so guaranteed near mint, right? It looks to be in great shape in the bag, but typically when I take these out, it does have spine ticks or other things. But here's why I got it. And I knew at the time it was one of those where, and I've mentioned this before, like, this order was built around Thor 326. When I got the alert that it was available, and we were days past the Scarlet Scarab reveal. I'm like, great. Now I want to add a few other books. This was a book that I did the opposite of exactly what I had been explaining. I didn't wait for this book to kind of drop in my lap at a certain price. This was just a book I wanted. And sometimes that happens. As a comic book collector, you have all of this logic, and then you throw it out the window and you just kind of buy what you like. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm kind of a Jean Grey Phoenix fan. This is a story, John Byrne's story, and I've heard rumors of this too, like him fighting with Claremont around Jean Grey or the Phoenix story and all of that. And then when Byrne left the X-Men and he went to write Fantastic Four, he's like, fine, I'm going to write a story about Jean in here and talk about the X-Men. Some of that back channel sort of discussions. I love hearing about that too. Just I love the creative process, but also just any drama or anything else that was going on behind the scenes. So back to the point here. Byrne Fantastic Four. I'm getting as many of these as I can, trying to complete a full run. Jean Grey, Phoenix, great cover, She-Hulk. 1985 comic, like, checked all the boxes for me. Great cover, all of that. So I went ahead and grabbed it for essentially the price they had it for. I wasn't looking for a deal, wasn't looking for any kind of value picker thing, anything here. Just thought this was an outstanding cover. And if I were to really fill out an entire wall with X-Men, Phoenix, Jean Grey books, I would include this one if I could get it in a 9.8. So just went ahead and grabbed it. Next one is Batman Adventures #1. No backer board on this one. Really weird. They had a penguin ad on the back, and there he is on the front too. Probably like I'd probably say a classic or semi-classic looking cover. This series, of course, is known for Batman Adventures 12, the first appearance of Harley Quinn in comics. Now, it is kind of an animated Harley Quinn, but it doesn't matter that is her first appearance. She's on the cover. It is a extremely collectible book. This is the first issue, obviously, of Batman Adventures, and I think it's just sort of riding a little bit of curtails of the fact that Harley appears 11 issues later. And in looking at the values for this book, it does have value. I made this one of my value picks. You can still find this book. I think Mile High still has this book, so it's out there. It's available. But with this being a Batman Adventures book and having the animated feel, not that it's a kid's book per se, but a lot of stores had this book with the young adults or kids section, and those would often get beat up. So I think that this is one of those where in a high grade, there's a lot of value because a lot of these were very well read. Okay, Avengers 246. This is another one. This is the first appearance of Maria Rambeau. Maria first appeared on screen in Captain Marvel, and then she appeared again in Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness. So this again is one of those where, the rumor is Maria is going to appear in Doctor Strange, so her first appearance is going to heat up. I have this book already. It was fine. I wasn't intending to buy another copy, but when this book got a little bit of attention and got some value, I made sure that I was tracking it. And again, everything sort of lined up where this was a decent value pickup, and went ahead and grabbed it. This is an Al Milgrom cover, and it's great, and it's featuring Star Fox, Cersei, She-Hulk, so a lot of things going for it here. And I think that the attention on the Star Fox books in particular, I think it's cooled off. It will come back and heat up again once we see him back on the screen. And I think books like this are going to still be very valuable as people go back in time to look for Star Fox books or Star Fox books with him on the cover. Okay, the last one, this was more of a speculation awareness kind of book. This is Fantastic Four 245. This book shot up out of nowhere, again, related to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, when Reed had mentioned that he has specifically two children, like he has a family. And this is the first time, I think it's Franklin Richards as Avatar, but this isn't his first appearance, but it was kind of like I don't know if it was like an alternate storyline or whatever, but it has significance because of Franklin. Originally, though, this book popped because there was a lot of really wild ideas around the God of Light. And there was a lot of speculation here that the God of Light was going to be Franklin or something like that. And I don't know. However, kind of again, things aligning. I have this book. I have the direct edition. This is the newsstand copy of 245. But when I saw that just the mention of Mr. Fantastic having children was boosting the value of this book, again, I added this to my tracking system and just watched it. I watched the prices. I watched the people kind of talk about it online and saying it's ridiculous that this book is going for so much. And again, I got an alert that this was available on Mile High and went ahead and grabbed it. And now I think what's interesting is some more time has passed. So let's look at the values of these books, see what I paid for them, and see did the values hold up. So you have kind of like three different milestones in this timeline. The first moment that the news or you see a character on screen or there's speculation about casting, there's that moment. Then there's the moment that you purchase the book and acquire it, and then there's right now. And do these values hold up? So let's take a look and see what I paid for these and compare it to those values. All right, here we go. This is what I paid for the order that was placed on May 19th, 2022. I paid $114.80. It was no tax, no shipping. I just had to pay the $4 insurance on the order, which I always do not mind paying. It's really kind of a good deal in my eyes to get these 6 books at this price and not have to pay tax and shipping on it. I love it. And then what we'll do is take that $4 of insurance and apply it to the cost of each book and make sure that my math is accurate, and the $114.80 total cost for the 6 books matches my receipt so that I know that the cost for each book is accurate. Now, I have the fair market values provided by Cover Price plugged in here, and then I compare the total cost to the value, and you can see it's almost a $30 loss in terms of raw book value. Fantastic Four 286 is the biggest offender here, and this one I kind of knew when I bought it I was overpaying, but the goal here for me is I really wanted either a 9.8 candidate or a book that I could work on to hopefully get into the 9.8 range. It is Fantastic Four 286 with Jean Grey as Phoenix, maybe, on the cover, is a book that I would like to slab and add to my my wall of slabbed Phoenix comics. So I was willing to pay more to an online retailer that I trust. We'll see if it works out once I grade the book, but that one, as you can see, I essentially overpaid by almost $13 for that book. So that's something that maybe I go back, especially if it's not a 9.8 candidate, maybe I look at that on eBay or some other place to see if I could get it more closer to fair market value. It is a book that's on my radar, so again, I feel more empowered and educated to be on the lookout for that book in person or elsewhere online. So I kind of knew that I was overpaying for that anyway, so it's not that the spreadsheet analysis is unfair to me when I do this, but I just try and keep it all relative, keep the data simple. So for the most part, I mean, you could argue I overpaid for all of the books. The one that was kind of more or less in line, I paid $12.67 for Batman Adventures 1, and it's holding a fair market value of $11.13 right now. So I mentioned this before with Mile High. Again, I'm not trying to apologize or justify my purchase, but Mile High Comics is not a source for comic books to flip. I believe that it's a comic book resource and opportunity to get books to invest in, to get in high grade, and potentially grade them out. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and plug in 9.4 because that's what near mint is, and we assume that Mile High is sending us near mint books in 9.4, right? Not always the case, but let's see what kind of values these books have in a 9.4. And even in a 9.4, it's a loss. The only winner here is Fantastic Four 245 that did have that spike in graded book sales. So in a 9.4, that book is $90. So that one is still falling within, I would say, my acceptable justification for purchasing the book. So that was a $30 cost roughly. And then if you add all of the fees to grade the book, including sending the books, shipping them, and so forth, you can still see that you would still stand to make a little over $28 in terms of value that you've been able to add to your collection, as opposed to just buying the slab raw as $90. And then you're obviously the cost of that is even more because you're paying to have the slab shipped, which is typically somewhere around 15 or $20. Maybe there's even tax on top of that. So you kind of see where I'm going. This is the cost, the grading fees and the shipping, plus the cost to acquire the book raw, and then comparing the value there. Now, overall, it's showing a big negative here of negative $58.15, because even Thor 326 and a 9.4, which is probably because I would say that people who had the Scarlet Scarab books, there wasn't enough time. It really was kind of a surprise. Most people did not see that coming. Most people did not expect her to become the Scarlet Scarab. So maybe there's a little bit of a delay, and I don't know. It's possible that $20 value could pick up with a little bit of time. But nonetheless, this is what it is today. It's only worth $20. So if I was expecting that book to have value in a 9.4, I would be wrong at a negative $36 loss. Same thing with Secret Wars. I think that one being a modern book out in 2015, a 9.4 is just not desirable. People want the 9.8 on those types of books. And even Avengers 246 from 1984. It's the second oldest book that I ordered, but only $44 there. So really, I'm hoping that these are 9.8 candidates if I really wanted to kind of say that this order was a success. So for 6 books, if they all end up being a 9.8, which they're probably not, but just so I can see kind of the ceiling or the range, the potential range of these values, $859.85 if I were to send all of these books in for professional grading, and they came back in a 9.8. Now, the most interesting one of all is the book that I basically centered the order around, which is, again, Thor 326. Current CGC value in a 9.8 according to GPA is only $70. So it kind of is what it is. So even with me kind of saying that the awareness came in, I would say this one, Mile High, was smarter than I was. So the total cost of this book, $23.47. I really felt like at the time that was a pretty good deal. I thought that the values and everything that I was researching and really looking up, and I really felt like $23 for that book was a pretty fair deal. But I was wrong. It fell short from the raw value perspective. It's dropped. It's come back down to $19.21. And then the CGC value with only a $14.31 value add. The big book here, again, is that Fantastic Four 245, $345 in a 9.8, with it having a CGC value of $407. That seems crazy to me. It seems really, really high, but you know, again, the market is what it is. These are the values. This is what the books are selling for, and I trust cover price and GPA, and that's where I get my values from. That's where I get my data from. So it is what it is. So again, that's actually quite nice for a less than $30 investment to have the potential for that book to come back graded and have over $400 in a 9.8. That looks good to me. The others really have that $100 threshold. It's just kind of it's a good line that you can draw in terms of, you know, is it worth it? Because right now, the CGC fees and shipping somewhere between $25 and $35, then your cost to acquire the book. The $100 threshold kind of keeps the math easy. So if you can kind of acquire a book when it's all said and done for $50 or less, and it has a CGC value of $100 or more, then, like I said, that easy math tells you that you can at least double your money. So Avengers 246 having $156 of value in a 9.8. Batman Adventures 185. So that's really great for only a $12.67 investment there. And Secret Wars #1 from 2015 is already over $200. Hey, it is what it is. That's why I started to grab several copies, because I saw that that book was shooting up. Because I think people are speculating on the word incursion, and they feel like that is leading us to the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars and not the Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. So I'm going to continue to look for that book and pick up as many copies as I can. Like I said, I think Midtown kind of has those books coming in and out of stock, so check that out. But getting back to kind of the timeline and the values, if I'm looking at these, I think the Secret Wars #1, maybe you exclude that one, right? Because that one's kind of taking a different path out of these 6 books. That one's holding its value. Its CGC value is really high. But the rest of them, I think, have come down. They have come down. At the time, I know I'm looking at my total cost. I wouldn't have purchased a few of these, you know, because I'm paying quite a bit more than fair market value. So I think at the time I bought them, they seem to be a better deal in the moment than what they are currently. But at this point, like, everyone moves on so quickly to the next thing, the next book to flip, the next book to spec on, that the books that were hot in that moment, they drop. It's just a matter of fact, they just drop unless there's continued spec, unless it's like, okay, now we've seen this character, now we think it's really going to explode. And maybe that's kind of what's happening to Fantastic Four 245 still, is that there's still the potential for Franklin and Valeria to show up in the MCU. But even if they do, it's potentially years away. So it's kind of one of those things, like, it's supply and demand and opportunity, because I can't necessarily go get some of these books anymore because they're out of stock. And that is something that also, maybe that's like a fourth phase to think about, like a phase 4 situation, where it's like, okay, I get it. It's worth a particular amount, and then there's speculation or rumor that boosts the value, and then we actually experience whatever that rumor was by seeing the character in live action. And then what happens after that, you know? And a lot of people talk about that. A lot of people talk about, like, the moment after you see the character, maybe there's a letdown or there's book value that has dropped. But then is the supply there? And it's not just the supply, it's the supply at a particular price point. And that's what I see a lot of people talk about, is they say, oh, this book is plentiful. Well, it's plentiful at a particular price because people are trying to capitalize and maximize value, because they know people have seen the character and people are more likely to act upon it. I think that current market values are not being respected, and that's why there seems to be more of a supply out there. But the supply at the price point is still not there. And that's where I kind of struggle or question what's going on, because I feel like, well, I'm still satisfied that I got the Scarlet Scarab first appearance for $23, even though its fair market value is 19, because there's no supply right now for 20 bucks. That the supply at $20 is gone. There's a supply at whatever it is, 40, 50, $60, and they're not selling. And so these sites like Cover Price aren't reporting sales because people are trying to get more for them than what they're worth. This is where you just kind of have to take all of the data into account and just make your own decisions. And like I did with Fantastic Four 286, I didn't care. I wanted the book. I paid extra for it. I got it. I hope it grades out in high grade, and then I can add it to my collection and be a proud owner of that book. And that's what it's all about. So let me know what you think about this. I kind of rambled a little bit. Please leave a comment. How do you feel about the timelines of speculating on characters that we're seeing in live action, and has the timing of that shifted? Do you still believe that there's like a peak time to sell a book, like when a first trailer drops? Do you not stress about that stuff? Does it not matter to you? I'd love to get some feedback on this. I do feel like the very strict like peaks and valleys of these books, I believe they're starting to level out a little bit more. And not only are there a lot of comic books, I think there's even more times to purchase the book. There's more opportunities to do so. But I do think that people are holding on to these books and just expecting a certain value for them that is not quite lining up with the market. So I'd love to get your feedback on this. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment in this video. Thank you for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.